Hello, students. So, the topic for today's session is history and growth of television in India. So, in this session, what, what has been planned is after completion of this session, we should be able to know about the history of television, both a little bit of scientific and technical history, and also the what is it, the policy based the development of television in our country. So television in India and various television experiments that has happened in India, and television after Gulf War, and cable and satellite television. So we'll be touching upon these topics, and we'll have a presentation for today. So I hope after completion of this session, you should be able to know about the history of television, television in India, television experiments, cable and satellite television, and television after Gulf War. So before getting into what you say, know the history of television from our country, look at the international perspective of the television when it came. So experimental. So all these television, because it's a science and technology, like radio and all these things, they started with an experimental television. So the experimental television broadcasting was started in the United States of America in the 1920s. So that was the thing that we discussed in the last class also, of the characteristics of television when the television came parallel in the 1920s. This experimental broadcasting started in the United States, and that time they invented the electric television tube. It was invented in 1923. What we call now subsequently the picture tube. I think you heard about these terms. It's the television is known as the picture tube, followed by the electronic camera. The television home receivers were invented. So okay, that is a revolution that happened. The mechanical television, what we say, the full-fledged television was invented by John L. Bird of Britain in 1926. You all know, no? The father of television. Those who invented, many people involved in inventing these technologies. What you say, the picture tube, image capturing, electronic camera, receivers. But finally, the credit goes to the person who invented the mechanical television, John Albert of Britain in 1926. So the first transmission was happened in San Francisco on September 7, 1927. So which is designed by this Flo Taylor Framsworth. As I said, many people involved in this journey of inventing television. So the mechanical television, we can say John Albert. The credit goes to John Albert. The USA RCA, the company which dominated, what to say, this is dominated in the radio business in the country, what we call USA, United States of America, and the Radio Corporation of America, the company which is dominated in the radio business in the company invented this, take this charge for electric television invention. So in 1930s, after this invention by mechanical television invention by John Elber, the television stations were set up in New York and London. So those were the places where they set up the television stations, TV stations. They offered regular telecast programs. So that's all the telecast program they started offering. And television became popular in advanced countries such as America, the late 1940s and 50s. So after setting up stations in New York and TV stations in New York and London during 1930s, it became popular in the countries, the developed countries during 1940s and 50s. So this brought further advancement in the form of what we call it as satellite communication. So the two terms we have to take it consideration: terrestrial broadcasting and satellite broadcasting. Until then, it was a terrestrial. Terrestrial means it is inside that sphere area of globe which is not going away the some stratosphere or troposphere to the satellite. So initially it was a terrestrial broadcasting. So after this popularity during 1940s and 50s, it makes the further advancement of in the form of satellite communication. Okay, the first communication satellite is known as Early Bird, was launched in 1962. Until then, it was a terrestrial broadcasting communication satellite. So, satellite for communication was Early Bird in 1962. This was the important first communication satellite. So, what the year 1962, no, there was said to be starting of the age of satellite communication, almost 60 years from now. In the year 1965, the International Satellite System, known as Intelsat, International Satellite System, in 1965 is known as the Intelsat, began operating. So full-scale commercial broadcasting, even in the times of terrestrial broadcasting, USA began only in 1947. So the interesting thing to be noted here is until after 1923, what you say, after 1930s, TV stations setting up in New York and London, the program started in the late 1940s and 50s in the developed countries, and nearly some 10, 12 years, it was like a terrestrial broadcasting. And this popularity between for television broadcasting made the advancement for the satellite communication, which happens in 1960s. So the key points to remember is 20s television invention, the revolution, that is in 40s and 50s gaining popularity, and 60s entering into the satellite communication. Satellite is the age of satellite communication. In 1965, the International Satellite System, they call it as Intelsat. So you heard about this term Intelsat, INSAT, and also this Intelsat is known for International Satellite, began operated in 1965. So then the history, the different corporations, different agencies, they took over this television broadcasting. They because they found the potentiality and popularity for this medium, and they started this. For example, in Great Britain, British Broadcasting Corporation, they took over this in charge of broadcasting, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. By the late 1980s and 1990s, the cable and direct satellite television systems increased the number of channels. So, this hold of these government-funded networks began to weaken. So, these government-funded networks like British Broadcasting and Canadian Broadcasting, when weakened by this increase in the number of channels because of the advancement of technology like a cable television network, direct satellite television. Then you heard about the term DTH, direct to home. Now then VOD, video on demand. Now what we are doing now, OTT over the platform. Okay, so that is the era what we are now, OTT. So the interesting thing to note here is government-funded networks began weakening in the late 1980s and 90s because of the satellite television system and increase in the number of channels. Okay, so this is just a slight brief introduction about the international perspective of television, how it came from 1920s to 1980s. So if you see here the history of TV, which is portrayed in a picture, 1800, the invention started. 1927, the mechanical television. Summary of how the design has happened and how the picture tube is designed as a mechanical television. 80s, the great impact was the passage of the TV block white to color television. So that happened. The interesting period that you have to take notice, during 80s, the color television came, black and white. You should not use the term black and white. It's actually technically, if you want to say, it's a monochrome. Monochrome is single color. So the television which comes, which broadcast in a single color, it's monochrome television. And the color TV happened in 1980s, a predominant model and icon of the time. That time, now the totally different. It has witnessed many change, technological advancement, and to what you say, curved TV, slim TV. So we are in the era of technology. We are seeing many advanced technology. So the inventors conceived the idea of television long before the technology to create it happened. So the early pioneers, they speculated the reason, if audio waves could be separated from the electromagnetic spectrum to create radio, so why not TV? So to put TV waves also can be separated to transmit visual images. So that was the idea which came into mind. This I am telling a little bit technically how it has been started. Why not the audio waves can be separated from the electromagnetic spectrum and can be transmitted the same way the video visuals can also be done. So this is the what you say the thought invoking what you say spark that came to the researchers those times. Though many pioneers have contributed to make it possible, John Bird is generally regarded as the father of television. So again, I am repeating the year of British Broadcasting Corporation, which began the first television service in the 1936, parallelly with the America. So by 1939, television broadcast began in the United States. Other countries started their broadcasting during 1950s. So the early broadcasts were all black and white. The successful program in color was transmitted by broadcasting system in USA in 1953. So these transmission were all experimentation, the color broadcasting in 1953. Okay, then so this gives an international picture of what you say our television, its origin, both technically and how the researchers have seen this television as a medium of powerful medium. So they're coming to national perspective, coming to India, National Planning Committee convened by the Indian National Congress, which formed the subcommittee to what you say to identify the possibilities and the potentiality to have what you say television in India. So the various subcommittees I am naming a few. Chanda Committee, the committee which was formed in 1964 under the chairmanship of Ashok Chanda and was called the Committee on Broadcasting and Information. So then and there various committees were formed by the Indian government to look after the what you say the changes and to look after the transitions and transformation that happens in the broadcasting industry. And this was the committee which formed to find the committee on broadcasting and information media. So the outcome, no, inadequate information, poor motivation, and insufficient participation by the masses in the country's development program. So the output is in a country's development program, the information reach was inadequate and poorly motivated and insufficient participation by the masses. So in India, so something has to be happened. Then how it started, the television, how it started. So in September 1959, an experimental television program was started to train personnel and particularly to discover what television would achieve in community development and formal education. So as like All India Radio started this as a part of a UNESCO project. So UNESCO offered a grant of $20,000 and offered equipment from the United States and the Philips, if you want to mention the Philips company, India, demonstrated its use in an exhibition in Delhi. So in early 1961, UNESCO funded with just $20,000. 1965 entertainment programs were introduced under pressure from manufacturers and the public. So the range of transmitter, as I said, the transmitter, terrestrial broadcasting, the range of transmitter was 40 kilometers. The time and the audience comprised members of 180 teleclubs, which were provided free seats. So this started as an experimental event, experimental television. So 180 teleclubs, 180 the members of 180 teleclubs were formed, which were provided free television sets by UNESCO And the year 1961 witnessed an educational television program for science and teachers. So in 1965, entertainment programs were introduced. So educational television programs in 1961 and 1965, the entertainment programs were introduced because under the pressure from the manufacturers and the public. So in 1967, Indian television went rural. You see, where you can see this in 1967, Indian television went rural. Programs for farmers in 80 villages from the teleclubs sponsored by UNESCO in the villages from villages of Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, and Haryana began in the 1967, especially for the farmers. 1972, the Bombay Center, first the Bombay Center inaugurated, which ranged from 70 to 100 kilometers. And in 1973, Srinagar and Amritsar center started producing television programs. And in 75, the Pune center began, which relaying programs from Bombay. So they don't produce programs. They just receive and relaying. That they call it as relaying. So teleclubs in Delhi and Haryana were started in 1975 and 76. So this year, beamed educational, what you say, the educational programs to villages through site. So that is what they call it as the 1959 experiment of television is called as site, SITE, Satellite Instructional Television Experiments. That is one of the important to be noted site which gave by the Chanda committee where the masses are having a inadequate information and poor motivation towards the what you say the information from the developments that has been happening from the government side. So now the continuing a glance about the growth of television in India. So in 1975, the same year, Calcutta, Madras, and Lucknow were put on television map. So 1975, the satellite beamed educational programs to villages in 6 states. 1975-76 site satellite instructional television experiment, which beamed educational programs to villages in 6 states. And 1976, commercial television was introduced. Terrestrial transmitters. It's not satellite, it's a terrestrial with the terrestrial transmitters were put up at 6 selected centers to extend their coverage. So 1976, the television was separated from All India Radio. I will tell the story later of the how because of administrative reasons and for other reasons how the All India Radio managed the television and it has separated. So the interesting year to be noted here is in 1976, television was separated from All India Radio and constituted a new body under a new banner called Doordarshan. Okay. In 1977, terrestrial transmission put up at many places across the country like Jaipur, Hyderabad, Raipur, Gulbarga, Sambalpur, Muzaffarpur. We extend the television coverage to the population of about 100 million people. Okay. Then those time the political parties also shared television time for election broadcast. So, if, interesting year to be noted here is the 1982, where the national program was inaugurated. INSAT 1A, India's first communication satellite, was placed in the geostationary orbit, but it failed in its operation. But the year to be noted is in 1982, Indian satellite, India's first communication satellite, INSAT 1A, was placed in the orbit but failed in its operation. So, the color TV introduced in 1982, Doordarshan's live coverage of all political events and all the governmental events happened in the same year. And in 1983, INSAT 1B was successfully launched in the orbit with the help of an American shuttle, space shuttle we call as Challenger. Okay, so this was just a glance about the television growth here. So to know a bit more about the satellite interstellar television experiment is the most remarkable and momentous development in television in the SITE program, Satellite Instructional Television Experiment program. And that was an experiment which was also a brainchild of Vikram Sarabhai, who was a former director of ISRO. So in 1967, the UNESCO expert group, no, they studied the utility of this site for the development, national development programs on educational, agriculture, and health. So site was inaugurated. Educational TV programs, as I said earlier, it started with 6 states, which include Orissa, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka. Orissa, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka were the states with 2,500 viewers in various villages across the 6 states. So every day, 4-hour programs will be telecasted. So they procured programs from All India Radio production centers across the state where it has been set up initially. So the ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, set up its own audio-visual instruction to plan and produce the program. So this is a brief of this site and reason for site and what site experiment did during its introduction. So as I said, the All India Radio, the Prasar Bharati. So Prasar Bharati is a statutory autonomous body which was established in 1997. The Doordarshan along with the All India Radio was converted into government corporations under Prasar Bharati. Before that, the All India Radio and Doordarshan were the same, and it is separated during the time. And the Prasar Bharati, especially uh, to convert the government corporations, these broadcasting corporations, to be under a single one umbrella called as a Prasar Bharati. So corporation was established to serve as the public service broadcaster of the country, which would achieve its objectives through All India Radio and DD. So all these, what you say, this Prasad Bharati, Akashvani, All India Radio, Doordarshan, various, what you say, various, what you say, the formation and the detachment from, detaching from the organization like All India separate, and then finally the club. So these things we will discuss in later classes, how it happened and why it happened. So I'll give you an intro here. The committee constituted by the country government has recommended at various times. The committee constituted at different times, and the different committees recommended different recommendation gave the different recommendations. So based on the recommendation, it was removed and it was attached. So that we will discuss in a separate class about various committees and their recommendations, how it happened. Okay, so but as of now, what you have to know is it's a Prasar Bharati, which was formed in the 1997, where Doordarshan and All India Radio comes under this that autonomous body. The purpose is to serve as the public service broadcaster in the country, achieve its objectives through All India and Radio and Doordarshan. So this was a step towards a greater autonomy for Doordarshan and All India. Okay. So the next era is the cable television, which is also an important era in television industry. Cable television has its root in late 70s, and it really started in 1984 in Mumbai. So Indian television viewers were looking for entertainment options. As I said, no, where the manufacturers and public gave pressure for what you say, they gave pressure uh, for entertainment programs, which happened in 1960, late 1960. So here again, the viewers were looking for entertainment options. The important manufacture of video cassette records permitted, what you say, domestically. So the cable TV was restricted to the major metros, and the Indian regional channels broadcast programs in various states in various dominant languages. So this cable TV in India is regulated by the Cable TV Network Regulations Act, was enacted in 1995. So some regional medias like Sun TV, ETV, ACNet have a strong grip over the regional market. Star Network entered into Tamil Nadu by launching Star Vijay. You all know about it, one of the most popular regional channels in Tamil Nadu. So it entered the Star Network. So now there are many n number of Indian regional channels, broadcasting programs at various languages, various dominant We just like now the Star has channels in Bengali, Malayalam, Telugu, Kannada, Marathi. Almost they have taken off most of the regional languages. So, so the reason for that Cable Television Regulation Act 1995 is the Supreme Court which stated that airwaves are not the monopoly of the Indian government, which boosted their growth, just to be given to the private. Several regional channels also came into being during this period. To mention Sun TV, Tamil and Malayalam, Asianet and Telugu, Enadu were a few of them. Today, almost all major Indian languages have television channels in them. Apart from the regional channels, they host international channels like CNN, BBC, and Discovery are also available to the Indian television audience with different categories of channels like 24-hour channel, news channels, religious channels, cartoon channels, and movie channels. We will see later. So far we are discussing about a single channel, what we call it as a GEC, General Entertainment Channel. Later, there's some international channels like CNN, BBC, and Discovery also came, and they specialized dedicated news channels, 24. Then the 24-hour product program channels came, news channels came, and now the dedicated channels which we have for religious channels, cartoon channels, movie channels, music channels, comedy channels, comedy for exclusively for comedy. So there is a comedy channel, so it's become a 24-hour channels. Okay, this is a brief of a cable television channel. Okay, so how it started as an experiment in India, then educational programs, then entertainment programs demanded by, pressurized by the audience and the manufacturers, then by the committee's recommendation, the program focused to the nation's development, like focusing towards the farmers, so agricultural programs, and then the terrestrial then began to, with the support of American satellite, INSAT 1 we became possible uh, for the satellite communication and satellite television has started. Then to cater the population, which is nearly 100 million people. So the cable television has came, and private parties also could engage in this broadcasting, where, as I said, no, why the airwaves has to be the monopoly of only the government. So they came into the picture, the cable television into Act 1995 enacted, and followed by many regional channels serving across the country has been launched. What I am telling is very, very little statistics. Now, if you see the total number of channels, it crosses 800, 900. Okay, and there are, what you say, uh, channels waiting for permission to be to start their broadcasting also in the ministry. So it is that is the interesting and growth of a television industry, which happened just in this 50 years. So that is the reason everyone looking at this television as a industry where how this, what you say, growth, this I don't know, rocket sort of growth happened for this television industry. Now we will see it's a recent data, recent statistics about television in India. If you see the number of the state-wise data, Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry in the country, Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry had the highest rates of television penetration. That is 97% compared to other regions in India. In contrast, Bihar and Jharkhand had TV penetration of about 26%, so making it the lowest region during the same period. So what I am presenting here is the 2018 data, which is available online. It's available online. You can take it from the statistics from online, but I don't find the recent 3 years thing. I think it's still under data collection and analysis stage. So you see the state-wise penetration of television, Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry stood first with the percentage of 97%. And Indians watched about 48.4 trillion minutes of television content in 2019. This was a slight increase compared to the previous year. This time, most watched general entertainment channels. So the type of program, you see here the second middle data, what it says is what is the type of program that Indians watched. The most watched was general entertainment channels, what we call as GECs, followed by movies. This is the 2019. So Maharashtra and Goa had the highest number of households owning televisions across India in 2008. With about 24 million TV households, the region's local language of Hindi spanning 1 or 2 million consuming the medium. Andhra Pradesh and Telangana ranked second that year. So number of television households, if we take in our country, Maharashtra and Goa stood first, which has the highest number of households. So this is just a bit of statistics to know about the recent present scenario of television. So news channels, when you come into news channels, made up the highest numbers among television content in India. With over 200 channels, news also had the longest volume. General entertainment ranked second at 155 channels, accounting for the highest share of viewership that same year, 2018. You see, the general entertainment channels across the country is just 155 channels, and over 200 channels, news channels made up the highest number among television content. We see in Tamil Nadu, which is the most popular Tamil television channel. No, Sun TV was the Sun Television. You all heard about it. Sun Television was the most popular Tamil TV channel in India by far, with almost 807 million views the week of January. This is the recent data, January 23 to 29. Star Vijay followed with over 528 million views in the southern region of the country. So this is for Tamil Nadu, the middle statistics. And if you see the what is the news channel, this is the most watched news channel. Republic, you heard about the Republic TV was the leading English news channel across India with over 5 million views in the week of September during 2020. This was followed by Times Now and India Today Television, with having 1.8 million views. So this is an English news channel which stood for first is the Republic TV, followed by Times Now and India Today. So these are all just a few, what you say, statistic data which happened recently for your just reference, and to tell about the reach, highest reach of the television across the country. Okay, so that's it. So if you want to say know the recent statistics, you can take this statistica.com, where I have took all this information. So that's it. The interesting point to make everyone to get into television. So what we have seen is just a trace. We have traced the history of television at a glance. Okay, we had a glance of history, how it has originated and how it is evolved, what sort of medium and what sort of to cater what sort of audience and what sort of programs in the beginning, and how it related technically. We have seen technically, and how it has traveled, and where we are now. So now we are in the era of digitization. This continues to be the growth driver for the industry. As I say, DTH, direct to home technology, is what we call as a robust growth of 75% of the thing. And one more interesting thing to notice: one is the digitization, the other one is regionalization. So the channel becomes more regionalizing, increasing the other cities, tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 sitting, the regional media consumption is going to rise, is expected to continue to rise. So they realizing the power of regional media, national and foreign players have ventured into regional markets and several others like. So that is the reason where you can see, interestingly, the regional channels and regional media, many of the foreign production houses or production foreign players are venturing into the regional markets. That is the reason they see this regional media growth is going to be robust and continually is growing. So foreign people, when it is the new media, is in the OTT, over the top technology, over the top platform. So these are all a few key trends that is happening in the media television industry. To conclude, the mature players are increasing looking build a good scale of development across the many media, which is going to explore across media, especially the foreign players' role in uh, regional media. So, this increasing of digitization and accountability, the Indian media companies are also expected to grow, have a what you say, the greater interest from the private players. Yeah, so that's it for today. Usually